Joining me now is Joshua Robertson with Crimson Edge Press, and I am going to be interviewing him, asking him about his publishing company, and also about his writing, because he is also an author. So here's Joshua. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks for having me on, Anais. Yeah, I am the CEO of Crimson Edge Press, as well as an author in dark fantasy. I'm most well known for my best-selling novel Melkorka, which is the first in my Thrice 9 Legends saga. And then today I actually hit the bestseller list with my short story Grimm's Delir, which was pretty exciting. So those are two of my 13, 14 publications that I have out there right now that are doing fairly well. But I've been around a little bit in different writing communities, so I know there's a lot of familiar faces out there.
Yeah, and that's awesome, because I actually read that short story and I can attest that it is awesome. So I can see why it would be on that top selling list. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So my first question, we're going to jump right into this, is why did you decide to open your own publishing company?
Well, you'll have to cut me off if my answer is too long.
Okay.
I actually started off in the blogosphere. I wrote a lot when I was younger, in my early 20s, spent a lot of time in the blogging community, and took a break for a little while. And then for about 2 years, I wrote solidly in the blogging community, and just recognized that there were a lot of struggles that writers were having with traditionally published works, or getting their works traditionally published. And I noticed also this led a lot of people to start publishing their work on their own, or going into self-publishing. And I almost actually considered joining indie authors. I had spent a little bit of time working with my own agent and getting stuff sent off to traditionally published places, but I never really pursued it seriously. And you know, I was considering going with them and doing the indie publishing thing, and that way I would just have more control over how my stuff was being published, which I think is the thing that drives a lot of folks to get their books published independently. It's not so much that they can't get published traditionally, they just choose to have more control over what it is that they're doing. And as I was considering that, I realized that there really is a lot that goes into the publishing process. And I wanted to be able to give something back to the writing community and try to be able to address some of the struggles that they were having from a company standpoint instead of just an individual standpoint. So each member that I have that works with Crimson Edge has been around. They've been in writing groups, social media, self-publishing avenues. We have a pretty healthy concept of what it takes, but this doesn't mean that we get everything right. We work with our authors to give them the best experience that we can, and work with them to reward them for what they've done. I know we have higher royalties than what our average in the publishing world for our authors, and we kind of pride ourselves in that, to give them a little bit extra back. But long story short, we're a unified team, more of a family, and I learned that it was better to work with a small team like we have now as a small press than to go out as a lone wolf.
Right, and I think that what you said earlier about how a lot of independent writers publish independently for the control aspect, not because they can't get published traditionally, is a huge deal, because I think that's a huge misconception with most people. They just assume that you couldn't get published traditionally. So I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah.
Very interesting stuff. So what do you think were the biggest obstacles that you encountered when you were opening this publishing company?
Well, we are about 2 years young as a company right now, and well, I've learned that publishing is a process of leveling up. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. You can't do everything the moment you step out the door, as much as you badly want to. But there's a lot of things we've had to work through. We've had to work through legal aspects, business aspects, the marketing, formatting, community building, taxes. It really never ends. And every little step that we take is a new learning experience, where we have to look at all the dynamics that play into it, and we have to do research to figure out the best way to play it. And again, we open the company to help authors. And so before we really take on anything, I like to look at what authors' primary concerns are, or what they complain about regarding that particular issue, before we see how we want to handle it as a company. But we've signed authors, we've worked closely with affiliates. We're currently piecing together our first anthology. We've now acquired our own domain and website. So we were able to redesign that, which for me was a big leveling up piece, being able to move off of WordPress and have our own domain.
Right.
And we aim to do every part right. Kind of balance the pros and cons of what's going on. I think that right now, the biggest obstacle that we're dealing with is getting out of the print on demand and getting into indie bookstores, and then gaining warehousing so that we can get into larger chains with print books like Barnes and Noble.
Right. Yeah, I can see how that would be a challenge, but just taxes alone and figuring out that, that's impressive. Ah, yes, a lot of obstacles. That is why I'm staying with being an author and not a publisher.
Well,
So,
and I think that's part of the piece is sometimes even independent authors don't always realize all these different things, all these hoops you have to jump through in order to be successful as an author. And that's why it's nice to have a small press to do those things for you.
Yes, yes. And to tell you things, there's so many things that I've learned from publishers like you and just the community that I would never have even thought about. You know, like with designing your book cover, thinking about how many rights you have, how many times your book cover can be seen before you have to pay that artist more money. I never thought about that. So yeah, it's very important to think about so many things, or have somebody else think about them for you so that you don't mess up big time. Yeah.
Yeah, and in all honesty too, there are a lot of websites that help talk people through it and give kind of this play-by-play on what it is that you need to know, but trying to remember everything without having a team at your back is just really hard to do.
Yeah, and I think that it might be foolish too.
It can get into a lot of trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's worth it. Not when there's so many people willing to help. Yeah. So my next question is, how do you choose what manuscripts you want to publish?
Well, I think that sometimes there's some confusion about Crimson Edge because we really do support indie authors, and we really do support even some other companies that help along indie authors. But our model for our company is traditional publishing. And so we follow a model that's where you send a submission in and it gets reviewed by an acquisitions editor, which is not myself. I'm very careful not to actually see any submissions that come in because I'm out there in the writing community and I don't want to be publishing friends just because they're friends. So we have an acquisitions editor who all those manuscripts come into, and he reviews the content for development, the potential of the proposal, the author, and we try to find manuscripts that complement our current publications as well as reaching our target audience. Crimson Edge publishes historical fiction, fantasy, and dystopian fiction. And so we try to focus on those three stories, and typically our stories have more of a darker feel to them. But everything goes through the acquisitions editor. He's kind of the gatekeeper, and if he gives it the green light, then it goes through, and I'll have a chance to look at it, look at the pros and cons and how much we can use in terms of resources from our company to help the author move along and be successful. And if we feel like we have the resources to really give them the support they need and help them grow as an author, then we turn the manuscript over to our other editors and get the final okay, and then move into negotiations from there.
Yeah. Sounds like you have a good process there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. So what do you think sells better, ebook or print?
You know, I hate to say it, but it's ebook.
Yeah.
At least for us, it's ebook,
Right.
which is hard because I prefer a print book. I'm not a huge fan of the ebook. But that's one of the reasons we decided not to really push getting books into stores or print books into stores until recently. And we spent the first couple of years really focusing on the ebook publication because they just typically sell better.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's something that's been really interesting to me to see, just because I like the feel of books too, myself a lot. But there's only so much space in a house, and eventually you run out. And then ebooks is, you turn to them. So yeah, I was interested.
And ebooks are honestly cheaper to make, and you see this argument a lot out in the blogosphere, in writing communities where publishers publish ebooks and they take a lot of royalties out of those ebooks, and it really doesn't cost them much to make an ebook. Marketing can cost money, the cover can cost money, but an ebook is digital. You're getting it, you know, through Kindle or some other avenue, and it doesn't really cost in terms of manufacturing and development and all those types of things. So,
Right.
yeah.
And paper. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So my next question is, do you charge authors upfront or take a percentage? And so how does that aspect work when you're dealing with authors? Is it straight royalty based on what they sell?
Yeah. Again, we're traditional published. We don't do Vanity Press
Okay.
or anything along those lines. We aren't a independent publishing house where we're helping authors self-publish or anything along those lines. We really function like a traditional press. So you get a royalty for ebooks, you get a royalty for print books, you get a royalty on books that go into stores in terms of whether or not they're, that's what I'm looking for. I've lost it off the top of my head. But it's all based off of authors getting royalties based off sales. And so they don't pay us a dime for anything. Everything is stuff that Crimson Edge takes care of for them.
Okay. And that's a good thing to note because there are a lot of vanity presses out there. And I think that it's good if you just want to see your work, but if you want to be an actual, you know, hopefully moving along the path to being a working writer, it's good to move away from that. So
yeah, I agree.
So do you accept unsolicited manuscripts? What that means is, for the people watching, I know that you know, is that you take manuscripts from people who don't have agents, or do you prefer to work with agents?
Actually, we do take manuscripts that are unsolicited. I don't know that we've actually ever received a manuscript from an agent. Most of the ones that come through our company are going to be unsolicited, or the writers don't have an agent behind them.
Good. See, that's another great thing to let people know, is that they can just send in their submission. If you have something that fits this company, go for it.
Absolutely. And we are open still for submissions, so people can continue to send those in to us. I know we received a lot in the last year. But we, of course, have a small staff, and I think this is one of the things that many small presses run into. I've actually seen some turn upside down because of it, because they try to accept everybody. Our editorial team is very definitive on who they pick, and they're picky on who they pick, because you can only take in so many and maintain the workload. If we were to accept everybody that sent in a manuscript, not only do I think we'd lose our image as a company, but we'd also be so overwhelmed the quality of work just wouldn't be as great.
Right. And I think that's important. You don't want to have your company just accept any old person. You want to be proud of everybody that is part of your company, if you can, you know, if it is a smaller company at least. So my next question is, what does Crimson Edge provide for an author? I know you talked about this a little bit, but is marketing part of the publishing plan? What types of things are you doing?
Well, first, the things that we provide for authors. We provide all the detailed editing services. Our manuscripts go through a 3-tier process. Some of those tiers have multiple steps to them, but we have developmental editing, copy editing, and proofreading services that we do for the author. Again, we cover all this. Authors don't pay us for us to do those things. It's part of the publishing company. And I really stress that we do those editorial pieces, because I many times see that editing services are offered out to the self-publishing world or to indie authors, and oftentimes that's copy editing and proofreading, but if you haven't done the developmental piece for your story, it's just not going to be a solid story. You're paying for a service that's going to have to be redone after developmental editing is done, and that's when you're looking at characters development, the arc in the story, the plot lines, all the things that make the story make sense. Proofreading and copy editing services, those are pretty easy to come by. Finding somebody who can do developmental editing, I think, is a little bit more challenging. But we also offer custom cover design, social media goodies for you to kind of put out there, distribution channels to get your books out there, you know, Barnes and Noble and those types of things, access to specialized blog tours, writing groups, promo groups. Of course, I run the Writer's Edge, which is a thing that we've had some of our authors on before, where they're able to get up and talk to their fans and their fan base, which I think all those things are nice because we have a platform and a fan base and reach that we can immediately link authors into. But as for marketing, which I think is what everybody always looks at a small press for, as well as any publisher for, is what are you going to do for us for marketing? And we try to do the majority of the legwork in marketing. I know that a lot of presses kind of get dogged for not marketing books well, but marketing is a very complex system. And to date, we just did a great show on marketing and how you can market your books better on the Writer's Edge. But the things that really promote getting a book sold is having connections with the community. So being out there and talking to people, which many authors don't always want to do. But if they don't see your face and don't talk to you, they're not going to be too inclined to get your book. And the publisher can't be your face. And so it's very important that you're going out there and you're connecting with your fan base so that people can get to know you, especially with so many authors out there in the world today. Also, we know that the other thing that sells books really well is having a backlist. And so if you're not continuing to write material and get material to the publisher for them to publish for you, it's going to be really hard to sell your books too. Many authors want to write that one-hit wonder and then expect the publisher to get them on the bestseller list, and it doesn't work that way. You have to keep writing and keep writing and keep writing. And then lastly, what is it that I'm missing? I don't know why I'm missing it. What do I say all the time on Ace? I can't even remember.
Well, you always say to keep writing, and you said that. That's a very important part. I think that people just assume they're going to be Stephen King right away, and Stephen King wasn't Stephen King right away. So
yeah, no, he was not.
No.
But yeah, you have to keep writing books. You have to have your face out there, and you have to be engaged with your community if you want to sell books. Yes, publishers have a responsibility to do some marketing. We got to know how to do the SEO and get your books up there on Google and be able to tag the books correctly so they're being brought up when people are searching for things. That's all part of our job. And we do a lot of things like blog tours and things like that to get your face out there. But if you're not out there as an author helping market yourself, especially for a small press, it's going to be really hard to be successful.
Right. Even for a big press, I have been following some people like Christina Dodd, and she is a New York Times bestseller author. And even now, she is growing lavender at her house, and then she is putting it in little fabric, little things for people. And then when she's going to her book signings, if you buy her book, she's going to give you one of these handmade lavender little things from her garden. I mean, come on.
Does that not get you excited?
Yes, I think that is so adorable. That is awesome. Yeah, I think that that's great. I mean, she's just always doing things like that, just so sweet. And that's what it takes. I mean, and she's made it. She's had so many bestsellers, and she could just probably hang up her hat a little bit. But no, she's going to get out there, and she's going to talk to people, and she's going to respond to her Facebook and her Twitter comments. And she's going to do things like that. I mean, that's great. I think that that's very important to do if you want to have an engaged audience who's going to care. And, you know, when her book comes out, people are going to buy it, and they don't care about the title or about even what it's going to be about yet. They say, oh, it's Christina Dodd. She's the one who gave me that lavender from her garden. She's so sweet. And they're going to buy it. And I think that's what every author needs to try to emulate and get to, you know, that point where they're going to see your name and they're going to attach it to all those wonderful feelings and just snap that book up.
You know, I think that's such a good point, because we really live in a time and age where we focus on what people do with their time and what their actions are and how true they are to themselves. And I know for myself, as an avid reader, I read authors who I respect what they're doing and how they engage with the world and engage with their fan base. That's why I love Salvatore. Not only is he a great writer, I've of course read him since I was a kiddo. You can read a lot of my interviews and see that. But R.A. Salvatore is a genuinely nice person. He comments to people on Twitter. He'll talk to you back and forth. He's respectful. And that's really cool to see that out of an author. And so I'm more apt to go and buy his new books and continue to support him as an author because he engages with the people that want to read his work.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, there's so many people out there. Why bother supporting somebody that you know is a jerk?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just would rather not. I'd rather support the people that I see have that spark of kindness, that are going out there making the world a better place. And, you know, sometimes it's going out of your comfort zone, because I know a lot of authors, and I'll put myself on that, are kind of on the introverted side. So to engage with people is sometimes really scary. And so for that, I know that Neil Gaiman is. I know he is. But he forced himself to get out there on the stage and do stupid things all the time, you know, like dress up as characters and say poems and sing when he's scared to sing. And how endearing is that? You know, because everybody feels that way. Everybody, no matter who you are, you're going to identify with feeling scared about putting yourself out there. So, you know, I think that it's okay to be afraid, but it's not okay to allow yourself to just stay there and not grow. Just, you know, you have to get out of the nest.
Yep. Well said. Well said.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So the next question I have for you is, I want to know about your bookstore. Where do you sell your books?
So this has been, again, one of those learning curves. And I think that you'll probably get a different answer from any small press or even an indie author who answers this. We, of course, have the bookstore that's set up on our website at crimsonedgepress.com, where you can click on those, and that's primarily just going to take you to Amazon. We're currently print on demand in the way that we're functioning. We are working right now to get books in print in independent bookstores, as well as some of the mainstream places. Right now, you can find books in a few independent bookstores that are near our authors' hometowns, and those are on consignment. There's the word I was looking for earlier. Authors, of course, get a different royalty for books that are on consignment. But we're looking at expanding this in the next 18 months so that our books aren't really just on demand anymore. They're primarily going to be in bookstores and being sold directly through the website. But that's, of course, another leveling up thing that we have to go through. So Amazon is the primary place to find any of our books that we're selling. They're also on Barnes & Noble in ebook right now. And we did use Smashwords for a while. We still have a couple on there that we can use for free promos and stuff for people that sign up to the newsletter for the weekly fantasy fix. But I actually found that Smashwords wasn't a good move for Crimson Edge. We tried it out for about 8 months, and we've seen sales go down as a result of using Smashwords. So we pulled off of there and have moved back to Amazon and using the KDP. But that's not true for everybody. So that's what worked for us, I think, mainly because of just the circles that we're in and who we connect with and what people primarily use for what our readership is. But Smashwords does work for other folks.
That's good to know. Yeah. I haven't had much experience with Smashwords at all, so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I would love to have you give me some of your contact information so the people who are watching can find out where to find you. I'm also going to put links down below, so don't worry if you don't catch them all.
Okay. Well, there are a lot of different places that you can find us. Of course, Google is probably going to be the quickest way, just to type in my name or Crimson Edge Press. But Crimson Edge as the company can be found at crimsonedgepress.com, which, of course, you can connect with our social media there. We do have a Facebook page, which you can go to facebook.com/Crimson Edge Press. We also have Twitter, which is Crimson Edge Pub, and you can keep track of all things Crimson Edge there. As for YouTube, we run the Writer's Edge, which is a live broadcast that we do monthly, where we give tips to writers on things like marketing and publishing and all those different types of things. And then we have the Crimson Edge Book Club, which is also on Facebook, where we have readers interact with each other. It's a good place to kind of get updates on events, releases, special deals, all those things that we're doing.
Great.
As an author,
yes, keep going.
Yeah, as an author, there's a lot of places you can find me as well. I have my own YouTube channel as well. That's Robertson Writes on YouTube, where you can find me talk about additional things for writing tips. I do some gaming on there, some other shenanigans. Robertson Writes, WRITES, is where you can find me on Twitter. If you want to message me, it's better to do it publicly than doing a direct message. Direct messages get lost. So you can also find me on Facebook and message me through Facebook at author Joshua Robertson. It's the /. I'm trying to think of what else. Other big thing is Goblin Horde. Yeah.
Yes, Goblin
The other
Horde.
big thing is Goblin Horde. That's me and my better half. We have our own YouTube channel, as well as Vine and Snapchat, where we support nerds and kind of give a safe haven for nerds to come to and have some fun with us. We also do some parenting advice and some things like that. But you get to see me and my better half with our entire horde of children running around and just enjoying life.
And tell them how many kids you guys have, because that is part of why the horde is such a horde.
Yes, together we have 9 children. There are 6 that you'll primarily see on video because 3 of them have opted out of being on video at this time. But yeah, there's a total of 9 of them that we are juggling, managing.
See, that is part of why the Goblin Horde is hilarious to watch. So
yes, it is a lot of fun. They range between the ages of 2 and 13 years old.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Joshua, for doing this interview and letting people know all about Crimson Edge and the things that you're doing. It has been great.
Yeah.
So I will finish my tea now. I hope that you have something to drink.
I'm drinking an energy drink. I already had actually coffee before this, so.
Good. So extra energy. All right, guys. Well, we'll talk to you next time. Goodbye.